Hello friends and welcome back to our YouTube channel. When we are preparing for competitive exams like UPSC, UGC NET or any other, the first crucial thing we need to understand is the syllabus. We have to learn it by heart. I know our UGC NET English syllabus is vast and complicated, but there is something invaluable at our disposal. Previous year's question papers and their options. These are incredibly important. To help you navigate this journey, I have spent time analyzing previous UGC NET English papers, focusing on the most important writers, movements, and literary details. I have also compiled everything into study materials and books. If you are interested in those, make sure to join our Telegram group and check out our website for all the details. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook for regular updates. All the links are in the description below. Now let's dive into today's important session. First, we are going to see British literature. First is Anglo-Saxon period. Some key writers and poets from this time include Venerable Bede, Caedmon, Cynewulf, King Alfred the Great. Next, we move to the Anglo-Norman period with the notable figures like Geoffrey of Monmouth and Layamon. Next is Age of Chaucer. This period is named after one of the most influential poets in English literature. Key writers include Geoffrey Chaucer, William Langland, John Wycliffe, John Gower, John Mandeville. Next, we have Age of Revival. We see major figures such as Erasmus, Thomas More, William Tyndale, Richard Total, Thomas Watt, Henry Howard. Next is Elizabethan Age. The Elizabethan Age is rich in literature with the poets, dramatists and essayists like Edmund Spenser, Philip Sidney, Christopher Marlowe, William Shakespeare, Ben Jonson and Francis Bacon. There are many more, but these are a few essential names. Next, we have the Puritan Age. John Milton as a poet and in prose, notable writers include John Bunyan, Sir Thomas Browne, Jeremy Taylor. Next is Restoration Age. Restoration literature boasts key prose writers like John Dryden, Samuel Butler, Samuel Pepys. Among dramatists we have William Wycherley, William Congreve and Apravin. Next is the Enlightenment Age. And important writers include Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift. In prose, the novelists include Daniel Defoe, Henry Fielding, Samuel Richardson. Next is Romantic Age. The Romantic poets were pioneers of emotion and imagination, including William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Lord Byron. In prose, and notable figures include William Hazlitt, Charles Lamb, and novelists are Jane Austen, Mary Shelley. Next, we have Victorian Age. This era saw both poets and novelists like Alfred Lord Tennyson, Robert Browning in fiction, and key names include Charles Dickinson, George Eliot, and essayists like Thomas Carlyle and John Ruskin. Next, we have Modern Age. In the Modern Age, novelists include Joseph Conrad, Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, and dramatists G.B. Shaw, T.S. Eliot, and poets W.B. Yeats. Next, we have Postmodern Age. And novelists like J.K. Rowling, Martin Amis, Anthony Burgess, dramatists Harold Pinter, Samuel Beckett, and poets Ted Hughes and Philip Larkin. That's a brief overview of British literature, one of the most important sections of our UGC NET English syllabus. Many students spent years making notes and lists for these writers and works. To save your time, I have written a book on British literature, covering all the important writers and their works for UGC NET English. If you want to purchase it, the link is in the description. We have around 2.5 months left to prepare. Grab your copy and let's get started. Next we have American literature. American literature is a crucial part of our UGC NET English syllabus. American literature spans several centuries, each filled with the iconic writers who shaped the literary landscape. Let's break it down period by period, highlighting the most important writers. We start with the foundational period of early American literature. Key figures from this era include Washington Irving and James Fenimore Cooper. The 19th century saw a flourishing of diverse literary voices, and here are some of the key writers. Ralph Waldo Emerson, a leading figure in transcendentalism, known for essays like Self-Reliance. Next is Edgar Allan Poe, master of Gothic fiction and horror, famous for The Raven and the Tale Tell Heart. Next is Herman Melville, known for his masterpiece Moby Dick, a complex exploration of humanity and obsession. Next is Walt Whitman, one of the most influential poets, known for his groundbreaking collection Leaves of Grass. These writers captured the changing spirit of America as it evolved during the 19th century. As we move into the 20th century, American literature became even more diverse and innovative. Some of the most important writers include Edith Wharton, known for The Age of Innocence, which won her Pulitzer Prize. Next is Theodore Dreiser, famous for his novel Sister Carrie, exploring social issues. Next is Stephen Crane, best known for The Red Badge of Courage, a psychological study of fear in war. Next is Robert Frost, one of the most beloved poets, known for his works like The Road Not Taken and Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Next is Ezra Pound, a major figure in the modernist movement, known for the cantos. Next is E. Cummings, famous for his unique poetic style, blending syntax and form. Next we have contemporary American writers whose works continue to influence readers today. First is J.D. Salinger, best known for The Catcher in Rye, a classic novel of adolescent rebellion. Next is Joseph Heller, author of Catch-22, a satirical novel about the absurdity of war. Next is William S. Burroughs, a key figure in the Beat generation, known for his novel Naked Lunch. Next is Edward Albee, a prominent playwright famous for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Next is Allen Ginsberg, a leading beat poet best known for Howl, a work that captured the counterculture spirit. Next is Sylvia Plath, a confessional poet known for The Bell Jar and her poetry collection Ariel. Next is Anne Sexton, another important confessional poet, exploring themes of mental illness and identity. Next is Robert Lowell, a significant poet whose works such as Life Studies blends autobiography with the historical and cultural critique. That's a brief overview of American literature, a crucial section in your UGC NET English preparation. Each of these writers has played a pivotal role in shaping American literary tradition. As you study them, remember that their works reflect the culture and social changes of their time. If you are looking for more in-depth notes or study materials, I have compiled everything into a book that covers American literature in detail for UGC NET English. You can find the link in the description below. Grab your copy and start your preparation today. Now we will dive into the world literature as a part of UGC NET English syllabus. Understanding literature from across the globe is a vital for UGC NET English, and I'll be walking you through key writers and different regions and their significant contributions. So first is African American literature, which has produced some of the most powerful voices in literary history. Here are some important writers. First is Toni Morrison. Known for Beloved, she explored the African American experience with a rich poetic storytelling. Alice Walker, best known for The Color Purple, she highlighted racial and gender issues. Next is Langston Hughes, a key figure in the Harlem Renaissance. His poetry captured the rhythm of African American life. Next is Amri Baraka, a poet, playwright, and activist. Baraka's work explored themes of race, identity, and social justice. Next, we have writers of British Diaspora who have expanded the reach of British literature. First is Jane Ray, famous for the White Sargasso Sea, a prequel to Jane Eyre that centers on the post-colonial themes. Next is Hanif Qureshi, known for the Buddha of Suburbia. He focuses on issues of race and identity in multicultural Britain. Next is Salman Rushdie, a towering figure. Rushdie's Midnight Children is a landmark in post-colonial literature. Next is V.S. Naipaul. His works like A House for Mr. Biswas delve into colonialism and displacement and identity. Moving on to the African literature, these writers have contributed immensely to global narratives. First is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Her works like Half of a Yellow Sun explore post-colonial Nigeria and gender issues. Next is Chinua Achebe, author of Things Fall Apart. Achebe is a pioneer of modern African literature. Next is J.M. Coetzee, a Nobel laureate. Coetzee disgrace examines post-apartheid South Africa. Next is Hole Soyinka, the first African to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, known for works like Death and the King's Horseman. Next, we have Canadian literature, known for its distinct voice and multicultural themes. First important writer is Michael Odantiji, author of The English Patient. His works often blend history and fiction. Next is Margaret Atwood. Known for The Handmaid's Tale, Atwood's speculative fiction is globally recognized. Next is Margaret Lawrence. Her works explore themes of identity and feminism in Canadian society. Next is Shyam Selvadurai, known for Funny Boy, which touches on identity and political conflict in Sri Lanka. Next, we have Australian literature, with the writers who depict the unique Australian landscape and culture. And important writers, A.D. Hope, an influential poet. His works reflects Australian identity and mythology. Next is David Malouf, known for Remembering Babylon. His novels often explore the meeting of cultures. Next is Judith Wright, a poet and environmentalist. Her works reflect deep connection to the Australian land. Next is Caribbean and Colombian literature, home to magical realism and post-colonial reflection. First is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the master of magical realism, best known for 100 Years of Solitude. Next is Derek Walcott, a Nobel laureate. Walcott's poetry reflects the history and the beauty of the Caribbean. Next is European literature. Europe has been a rich ground for literary movements, from Romanticism to existentialism. Let's explore some key figures. First is Molière, a master of 17th century French comedy, known for plays like Tartuffe. Next is Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a philosopher and writer whose works like The Social Contract shaped political thought. Next, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, a key figure of Romantic era, best known for Faust. Next is Victor Hugo, author of Les Miserables. His works embody the struggle for justice and human rights. Next is Leo Tolstoy, a Russian giant, best known for War and Peace and Anna Karenina. Next is Henrik Ibsen, the father of a modern drama known for A Doll's House. Next is Franz Kafka. His surreal existential works like The Metamorphosis remain highly influential. Next we have Indian literature. And important writers are Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. His novel Anandamath inspired Indian nationalism. Next is Mulk Raj Anand, known for Untouchable. He portrayed the plight of the marginalized in Indian society. Next is R.K. Narayan, the creator of Malgudi. His works like The Guide capture the essence of Indian life. Next is Khushwant Singh. His novel Train to Pakistan reflects the horrors of partition. Next is Anita Desai and Kiran Desai, both mother and daughter. Their novels delve into the complexities of Indian identity and diaspora. Next is Rabindranath Tagore, a Nobel laureate. His works, including Gitanjali, express deep philosophical and spiritual thought. Next is Kamala Das and Nizam Ezekiel. Their poetry reflects modern and Indian sensibilities and the experience of alienation. Next we have Indian aesthetics. Indian aesthetics is a rich and profound tradition in literature and art. Now let's see important writers. Bharat Muni, the author of a Natya Shastra which outlines the principles of Indian drama and aesthetics. And Mamata, Vishwanatha, Jagannatha and Rajashekhara all contributed significantly to the understanding of Indian poetics and criticism. And if you want to dive deeper into world literature, Indian literature and all the essential writers, you need to UGC NET. And I have written 12 detailed books based on previous year's questions and key writers. The link is in the description below. Next we have linguistics, which is a scientific study of language. It's an essential part of UGC NET English syllabus, and understanding its core areas will help you analyze language at a deeper level. And here are the main branches you need to focus on. Phonetics. This is a study of sounds. It covers how we produce, transmit and perceive the sound of language. You should be familiar with the terms like vowels, consonant and how different sounds are articulated. Next is morphology. Morphology looks at how words are formed from smaller units called morphemes. It's all about understanding the structure of words. Next is syntax. Syntax is the study of a sentence structure and the rules that governs how words combine to form phrases and sentences. Next is semantics. Semantics deal with the meaning of words, phrases and sentences. It's all about how to form words. Now we will cover poetic terms, culture studies, literary criticism and more. Make sure you watch till the end because these concepts are often asked in the exam, and understanding them thoroughly will give you an edge. And friends, if you want detailed syllabus according to unit, let me know in the comment box. I'll make detailed video on unit wise detailed syllabus. So next is poetic terms. Poetry is full of rich techniques, and knowing key poetic terms is essential for cracking questions related to poetry analysis. Let's go over some important ones. First is ambiguity, when a word or expression can have multiple meanings, often used to add depth to a text. Next is antithesis, a contrast between two things, often used to highlight opposites, like in "it was the best of times, it was the worst of time." Next is ballad, a form of verse, often a narrative set to music. Next is blank verse, unrhymed iambic pentameter, used extensively by Shakespeare. Next is carpe diem, a theme that urges readers to seize the day, living for the moment. Next is dramatic monologue, a speech delivered by a single character revealing personal thoughts. Next is elegy, a mournful poem often written in remembrance of someone. Next is epic, a long narrative poem often evolving heroic deeds and adventures. Next is haiku, a traditional Japanese poem consisting of 3 lines with a 5-7-5 syllable pattern. Next is letotos, an understatement that uses double negatives like not bad to mean good. Next is mock epic, a satirical form that uses a grand style of epic poetry to describe trivial subjects. Next is ode, a lyrical poem often praising a person, event, or object. Next is sonnet, a 14-line poem with specific rhyme schemes like Shakespearean or Petrarchan sonnets. Next is Spenserian stanza, a 9-line stanza famously used by Edmund Spenser. Next is terza rima, a rhyme scheme ABA, BCB, CDC, used in Dante's Divine Comedy. Next is volta, the term in a sonnet signaling a shift in theme or argument. Moving on to culture studies, a significant interdisciplinary field that examined how culture, politics, and society intersect. And here are some key figures you must know. First is Richard Hogarth, Stephen Greenblatt, Raymond Williams, E.P. Thompson. Now let's explore the syllabus of literary criticism, which is core part of UGC NET English. We'll start from the classic and move toward modern criticism. First is Plato, his theory of imagination and criticism of poets. The Republic set the foundation for Western criticism. Next is Aristotle. His Poetics gives us important terms like tragedy, catharsis, and the 3 unities. Next is Horace, famous for Ars Poetica, where he emphasized the rules of writing poetry. Next is Philip Sidney, an apology for poetry, defending the role of poetry in society. Next is Alexander Pope, essay on criticism, provided sharp insight into the art of poetry. Next is Samuel Johnson. His contribution to English literary criticism include evaluating works based on moral values. Next is Edmund Burke and Thomas Paine, known for their essays on aesthetics and revolutionary ideas respectively. Next is William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Both emphasized emotion and imagination in their romantic criticism. Next is Matthew Arnold. His idea of a disinterestedness in criticism laid the groundwork for modern approaches. After criticism, we have literary theory, which focuses on interpreting texts through various lenses. Here are the key theories you should study. First is New Criticism, focuses on close reading and analysis of the text itself without considering external context. Next is structuralism, analyzes literature through underlying structure such as language and myth. Next is post-structuralism and deconstructions. Introduced by Derrida, it questions the stability of a meaning in text. Next is postmodernism, emphasizes fragmented narratives, irony, and skepticism toward grand narratives. Next is psychoanalytic criticism, analyzes text through the lens of Freudian and Lacanian psychology. Next, we have reader response theory, focuses on the reader's interpretation rather than the author's intent. Next is the new historicism, emphasizes the historical and cultural context of a text. Next is eco-criticism, examines literature's representation of nature and ecological concerns. Next is psychological criticism, focuses on literature from previously colonized nations, analyzing theme of a power and identity. Next, we have literary devices and figures of speech. These help in the deeper analysis of a text. First is simile, a comparison using like or as. Metaphor, a direct comparison between two unlike things. Next is antithesis, a contrast of ideas in a balanced structure. Next is paradox, a statement that seems contradictory but reveals a truth. Personification, giving human qualities to non-human things. Next is hyperbole, exaggeration for effect. Next is sarcasm, using irony to mock or convey contempt. Next, we have literary moments. First is Scottish Chaucerian, a group of poets who were influenced by Geoffrey Chaucer. Next is University Wits, a group of late 16th century playwrights who preceded Shakespeare. Next is metaphysical poets, known for their complex metaphors and intellectual depth. Next is Kit Kat Club, a group of early 18th century writers and politicians. Next is Romanticism, emphasize emotion and individualism. Next is Cockney School of Poetry, a term used to describe a group of 19th century poets. Next is Naturalism, focused on the influence of environment and heredity on human life. Next is Dadaism, a European avant-garde movement rejecting logic and reason. Next is Absurdism, focused on the meaningless nature of life. Next is Hungry Generation, a literary movement in India challenging the norms of writing. Next is Black Mountain Poets, a group of American postmodern poets. Next is Beat Poets, focused on free form writing and rejected conventional norms. And that wraps up today's session. We have covered a lot, but there are a lot to cover in the UGC NET syllabus, but can't cover in one video. That's why I have written books. If you want to check out the books, join the Telegram channel or visit the website. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more exam preparation tips. Thank you so much.